The Cheating Death Podcast is a satirical program containing objective information about anything and everything under the sun. We are not political, we are not religious, we are merely analytical and perhaps a bit prodigious. You, dear listener, are fully aware of the global calamity in which faces us on a daily basis. We understand the world for what it is, a veritable dichotomy of individuals from left to right, from up to down, and backwards to forwards. All we must do as we proceed throughout this realm is see just what we are capable of. However, you are already firmly aware of this information as you have chosen to listen to the Cheating Death Podcast. In today's episode of the Cheating Death Podcast, we provide insight into the global calamity that is soon to be fulfilled in World War III. How soon? That's up to the powers that be, of course. We provide you with an all-new Annihilation Announcement, an all-new joke of the episode, a top 5 list of our favorite club drinks to take the edge off of the potential global calamity. And of course, dear listener, we have much, much more waiting for you in store. As well as, if you are so inclined, feel free to like, share, and subscribe this podcast episode on youtube.com/@Cleric of Chaos, and follow us on all of our pinned profile posts and social medias. Follow each and every single talented, skilled, brilliant and benevolent comedian, actor, producer, professional powerlifter, basketball, sports, media, U.S. military consultants, and so on. All of the links in the episodes in the podcast description as well. Dear listener, calamity is not a friend to those in whom choose to maintain order and cordiality. It is indeed a definitive, but also decisive inevitability that we all face throughout the course of time, and as we move forward, we must understand the only thing left to do is grab that iced coffee, put our feet up, and let us tell you how you can cheat death. This is your news anchor, the Cleric of Chaos, and this is your Annihilation Announcement. Fold on your clothing as you listen to this program, as the pants go into a folded fashion. Or fold your mind into a new way, dear listener, because as we march forward and as we push through all of the calamity and all of the tumultuousness that we face on a daily basis, we understand 2 things. 1, we are human. 2, we are susceptible to absolute nonsense. That's right, nonsense. We take for granted just how much and how far we have come as a species, and instead 9 times out of 10, there are still entities and individuals on this planet who don't take life seriously, who think things aren't a big deal, bruh. Don't worry about it, man. Take a chill pill. If you have these types of people in your life, please feel free to kick them in the shit and take out their ACL. Given the nature and dichotomy of our current life socioeconomic circumstances, ladies and gentlemen, we should all be a lot more angry. We should all be a lot more frustrated. We should all be a lot more disappointed with the way our world is heading. If we look at North America alone, the state and provincial systems in the United States and Canada are absolutely abysmal, abhorrent, and the fact that rights and solutions are constantly denied to those in whom need it is absolutely beyond excuse. You take into consideration exactly how long it takes to get a medical appointment in some states if you are not willing to pay top dollar, and as well as the labyrinth in which the medical insurance field has soon to be proven to be. We all understand from a particular perspective exactly what we must do in order to be better people, but are we actually willing and able to take the effort to actually do these things? Or instead, are we going to wake up every morning and complain about how tired we are, complain about how little sleep we got? Oh no, yesterday was completely out of my hands. There was nothing I could do. I am so sleepy. Listen, take it into consideration. You are a human being in whom is listening to this program and who may have someone like this in your life and whom is perpetually making excuses for how exhausted they are, for how late they are, for how lacking in substance and quality and time and fact they are. But you, dear listener, you do not have to tolerate this type of behavior. You do not have to look into a mirror and ask yourself why the individuals around you are not doing the same amount of effort as you or your counterparts. What you must do is you must decide for yourself exactly where these individuals fall throughout the course of your existence. Whether or not they are your best friends or they are your worst enemies, there are people like this sprinkled everywhere, through each metropolis, through each village, through each hamlet, through each township, through each rural village. And note, dear listener, it never becomes any less infuriating when you yourself have to take into consideration that you may be surrounded by complete and utter imbeciles on a daily basis when you go about your daily commute, when you hop into your little car, and when you drive to your little job, and you do that thing for 8 hours that they expect you to do. Meanwhile, you're not really working for those whole 8 hours. You're maybe working for 2 of them, and you're pretending to be busy for the other 6. Let's take into consideration exactly how far we have fallen as a species. Let us take into consideration exactly where we went wrong. We are not the species in whom is going to be the definitive and defining factor towards the answers to existence. We are indeed a creature of calamity. We cause much chaos, havoc, turmoil, disdain, disturbances, and everything throughout the course of life. There are no questions that we cannot answer with certain logic and certain practicality when you take into consideration exactly how this life is formed. But does that mean that a lot of us are even willing or able to try? No. The vast majority of individuals under 40 are so inundated with abhorrent circumstances and borderline nonsensical conditioning that they feel that their best resorts to life are coming up with stupid, nuanced jokes. And by stupid, nuanced jokes, I mean jokes that have absolutely zero practical application, no setup, no punchline, no delivery, and no tags whatsoever. You understand, dear listener, that when we move into a port of the world where the ships will set sail once again, we need to be on the side of benevolence. We need to work hard. We need to not give up. It is absolutely insane how many people on a daily basis are constantly complaining about how tired they are, how they have no control over their lives, how they need to do this, but they are completely incapable because they simply don't have the time, but they have 6 hours to play on a video game. You understand that we all have choices. We all have solutions. We all have opportunities. We all have lines of thinking. We all have different ways to be better people. But the amount of people who actually take advantage of these particular ways are very, very few and far between. We do not provide ourselves the hope, the promise that we were initially provided hundreds of years ago. back when people worked a lot harder, back when people cared a lot harder. And now, instead, we're completely surrounded and inundated by technology that makes our lives easier, and yet you have people in whom are trying to do each and every single thing they possibly can in order to utilize that technology to make life even easier. The advent of artificial intelligence alone, I know we've touched on this before, but you take into consideration just how much it's destroying your brain by using a ChatGPT, by using a Claude, by using a Grok, by using a Google Gemini. It does not matter which one you use. If you use it every day or even regularly, hell, even really at all, outside of the one particular time that you decide to look into it, you're like, ooh, this is not my thing, oh boy. Regardless, we need to do better as people. We are getting to a point in society to where there is going to be no return. And one cannot dwell on it enough that we will never become a Kardashev Type 1 or a Kardashev Type 2 civilization. It's simply not within us. Humanity is not capable of unifying. Humanity is not capable of respecting the other. Take into example the overall crisis in the Middle East that's been taking place for centuries at this point, borderline millennia. And yet, are people doing anything about that? Are people really actually trying to work together to try to find a solution? No. Instead, it's still the modern blame game. We still look towards the future and we try to identify people in whom will be in it and people who will not be in it. The idea of racism is absurd. The idea of intolerance is absurd. However, you also must take into account that there are people who are going to push your very limits. There are people in whom are going to push your tolerance levels to the highest possible level. And at this point, you must make a decision for yourself. Life is hard, but using these excuses, I'm too tired, I'm too sleepy, I'm too late, I'm too this, I'm too that, are nothing more than mere pedantic excuses that you would not give your best friend if they were to come to you for a solution. We owe it to ourselves to start to be better people. And quite frankly, if it kills me trying to do a little bit better to make the world a little bit more of a brighter place, then by God, I am more than happy to do that. Because at the end of the day, when we take into account the power, the strength, the skills, the attributes, the everything that we have, that we can provide this world to be a better place, very few of us actually use it. Instead, avarice, malice take hold, and all we do with that information is nothing good. But dear listener, you are smarter than the vast majority of individuals in whom walk towards this plane because you have the capability to move with your own function and identify each and every single day in your own particular way. But you know for yourself exactly what you must do. Grow, learn, change, adapt, evolve. For we will not be a species that lasts the tests of time if we do not make a hard U-turn. This has been your news anchor, the Cleric of Chaos, and this has been your Annihilation Announcement. Willkommen, 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 meine Freunde. Guten Morgen, guten Tag und eine gute Nacht. Ist eine Reisende und eine Ausländer, deine Allesfresser, deine Schauspieler, deine Vernichter und deine Künstler. Ist dein Herz gebrochen, meine Freunde? Und ich bin es aus, es ist traurig. Und ich bin bereit, Stein. Heute ist ein schöner Tag. Ladies and gentlemen, today, upon this episode of the Cheating Death Podcast, we discuss the potential calamity that is otherwise known as World War III. Currently, a hypothetical future event, meaning that the global conflict will reach a third level, that there will be a time to where nuclear warfare will completely devastate and annihilate each and every single organism walking the planet as we speak. The ideology behind the global world war being a third event is widely speculated to have begun back during the advent of the Cold War, essentially from the time of 1947 through 1991, at the fall of the Berlin Wall and the Soviet Union being completely taken down. We fail to understand that this particular ideology has perpetuated still throughout our current modern-day society, and how we deal with these things specifically has changed over the course of time. For you see, dear listener, there really is not a way for us to explain to you exactly how World War III will play out. Goodness, no. The idea that the Cold War was going to lead to World War III happened quite a few times throughout the course of the 1950s, the 1960s, and even into the 1970s. We also take into account the 1980s as being a prime example as to the overall realm of the potential of World War III taking place. The idea that this particular global conflict is not going to occur is only a dream, an ideology, a hope, a fantasy, because we take into account how many times we have been close to a global conflict that was both immediate, tragic, and destructive. You take into account in 1962 the Bay of Pigs, when the Cuban Missile Crisis took place, when the United States of America decided to form a blockade around Cuba and attempt to stop their missile acquisition. This led to immediate turmoil with the Soviet Union, to which both parties threatened to launch their nuclear missiles at the other, most assuredly guaranteeing a global cataclysm. However, this was abated at the very last moment, and we failed to take into consideration how close we were at that time to annihilation. From 1955 through 1975, the Vietnam War had every opportunity to turn into a global conflict, especially as the United States was aware that they were losing in the last 5 years of the war, and that each and every single soldier they sent was essentially being sent with a death wish. We failed to realize just how important these particular endeavors are. The 1960s, the 1970s, the veritable Cold War, the space race itself, was indicative of a potential brighter tomorrow that we all hoped to face, but ultimately, in the end, led only to space exploration, to the arms race, and to Russia, as well as the Soviet Union proper, formally industrializing after hundreds of years of being a peasant-esque country of rural town folk and agricultural expertise, and of course those in the frozen north and whom no one really cared about, including the governments. Sorry, Northern Russia. But we take into consideration all of the events that have taken place over the course of time that could have led to World War III. And I would be remiss if I did not mention one of the most bold, one of the most benevolent, and one of the greatest people to ever live. This, of course, was a man by the name of Stanislav Petrov, born on the 7th of September 1939 in Vladivostok, Primorsky Krai, Russian Soviet Union. This was a man in whom was responsible for the Soviet Air Defense Forces in 12 years of service to the military. He was a lieutenant colonel upon retiring, and the only reason any of us are alive today is because this man defied orders in 1983 during the Soviet nuclear false arm incident. We take into account exactly what happened during this time. The Soviet nuclear emergency response system had identified that the intercontinental ballistic missiles were coming from the United States. This was a disaster. This could not transpire. According to the permanent mission of the Russian Federation to the United Nations, there was a protocol to follow. There was a particular dialogue that must be obeyed. Had Petrov actually fallen in line with his overseers and his administrators, you and I would not be alive today. The world would be a wasteland. Only small pockets of individuals finding little bits of food and scrap in order to survive to the next generation. For you see, on the 26th of September 1983, the Soviets' nuclear warning system had provided information that 4 intercontinental ballistic missiles were making their way from the United States. This was, of course, of the utmost importance. It was required that there was to be an agreement among the team that they will respond. And it is only because of Stanislav Petrov's instinct and defying those orders that saved the world. For he did not push the button. His counterparts did, but he did not. This man is solely responsible for where we stand, for who we are, for where we sit as a species as of this present moment in time. We do not pay homage to this man nearly enough, because if it was not for him, you must understand that this would have led to widespread calamity, nuclear war, and the decision to retaliate would have been tumultuous, and it would have been disastrous. Understand that it took 23 years for the United Nations to recognize his bravery and for his efforts. This is not lost on current modern-day society. There is no military person in any military throughout the world in whom is the level of man, the level of soldier, the level of hero that Stanislav Petrov was. For you see, even during the height of the Soviet Union, he could have very easily made the decision to go along and proverbially push the red button, or have the nuclear missiles launched in retaliation, which obviously would have ended in a complete nuclear holocaust upon the world. But instead, the man chose himself to make a decision. And that decision saved billions of lives. And as we move forward into the 1990s, we also take into account the Gulf War, Operation Desert Storm, how uniquely, within 2 to 3 weeks, the United States had decimated both Iraqi and Kurdish forces in order to secure and seize the resources in which they had desired. This, of course, was continued by George W. Bush throughout 2003 to 2006. Now, we lose all of our information as soon as we drop our dimes in the fountain of well wishes, because as the 2000s climbed, early, mid-afternoon, evening, they all started to roll into each other. And as 2001 came upon us, dear listener, we were faced with one of the most horrifying terrorist attacks ever in the history of humanity, when the 11th of September 2001, the Twin Towers and World Trade Center 7 fell, costing approximately 3,500 lives approximately. And we take into consideration where we were on that day, individuals in whom are still young enough / old enough to remember exactly what had transpired. We know full well, without even needing to say it, that this particular endeavor was indeed an excuse to enforce and introduce the Patriot Act, which included more mass surveillance, more data analysis, and within the National Security Administration, we know that there are indeed individuals watching people's every single move in order to avoid a global calamity, they say. But in actuality, the reality behind it is that it is nothing more than a clandestine operation in order to ensure that more data is taken from individuals and that no one is really fully private. We take into consideration the overall global crises that have taken place in the years 2008, the 2008 economic crisis specifically, 2011 in the Gulf Arab Spring, 2011 Fukushima nuclear Daiichi disaster, and throughout the 2010s, further geopolitical turmoil throughout Israel and Palestine. Yes, I said Palestine. It exists. Deal with it. We take into consideration how close we have come to nuclear war once again, over and over and over and over again, and especially with the current presidency of the United States of America being willing to throw everything away at the drop of a hat, seemingly, there is no excuse, there is no reason for us to try not to live towards a brighter tomorrow. Whether World War III will ever be formalized and ever transpire is up to subjective interpretation. We may very well already be in it. However, dear listener, this is not for us to decide. This is for the world to see the potential ravages of war firsthand, and if in the event that we do not do our very best to stop this particular type of conflict, we will only be subject to the slings and the arrows of the mired beast within. The Russia and Ukraine war, in which Russia and Ukraine both have lost a significant number of their population. Take into consideration the geopolitical and global interest associated with that, countries all around giving Ukraine, giving Russia different forms of aid, and how if China is pushed in the wrong direction, they have no problem trying to smite down their enemies. The reality of our current life, ladies and gentlemen, is that we cannot be sure that World War III will not occur. But what we must do is we must try our best every single day to live a little bit better. But I am not telling you anything that you don't already know. Until next time, dear listeners, thank you for tuning in today. Take care of yourselves and each other. Today's joke has been brought to you by the Cleric of Chaos. Rumor has it that the next global calamity will not emanate from a place of inside the mind. Absolutely not. World War III will be globally publicized, and you will have people going to stores asking for items without paying, to which the cashier will respond, "That will be $3.50, please," and to which the consumer will respond with absolute surprise, saying, "I thought this was World War III." At the top of today's episode, dear listener, we promised you a break from the calamity of this episode. So we are going to provide you a list of our top 5 favorite club drinks. This being drinks that you get when you go to a nightclub. Now that I've provided that unnecessary explanation, let us dive right in. Coming in at number 5, we have the classic tall can of Pilsner. Coming in at number 4, we of course have the Tom Collins. Coming in at number 3, we have the Old Fashioned. Coming in at number 2, we have a Tequila Sunrise. And coming in at number 1, we have the Screwdriver. What are your top 5 favorite club drinks? Feel free to comment on the video below or email us at thecheatingdeathpodcast@gmail.com. What is categorized as the beginning of World War III may have already begun. However, we will not begin to see the effects of it until long after the chaos is complete, though this is subjective to many, as World War III is an entirely different debacle, an all-new game, a situation to where a lot of people are ultimately going to see exactly how bright the sun can become before we are all set to run. You understand, dear listener, that the calamity that we face on a daily basis is not only necessarily limited to that of military conquest or geopolitical collaboration. Absolutely not. It is completely rooted in every single element of our daily lives at this point of existence. It is, without question, rooted into our souls, our brains, our minds, our bodies, every part of us. We are inundated and bombarded with advertisements every single day, every single way, and ultimately, when we take into consideration exactly how overwhelmed we are as a species, note that 350,000 years of developing a nervous system, not once was it in the playing cards that we were ever supposed to encounter this much information, this much aura, so to speak, on a daily basis. We were not meant to. And this is one of the reasons why society as a whole is looking towards a global solution. As well, you take into account the recent indoctrinating and the attempts at absorbing one's brain into a particular ideology. That indoctrination, ladies and gentlemen, is imperative to those in whom are responsible for running the world itself. You think public education is bad by accident? Dear listener, public education is an absolute horror show. And yes, I said horror 5 times because it needed that. You take into account exactly how you are told life will be from when you are a child. You take into account how you are led through the proverbial gamut of opportunity. You go through your scholastic years and you see for yourself exactly how much more bizarre it becomes with each and every single year. Why don't you learn about taxes in school? Why don't you learn about budgeting? Why don't they teach you how to socialize? Why don't they teach you exactly how to make the most of the world around you. Instead, no, you're just stuck in some stupid bullshit civics class about things you're never going to really care about. Or, the European equivalent, the calamitist politics class, as some would like to argue they are called, as it is very melodramatic in nature most oftentimes. But we take into consideration exactly how this leads to a potential global conquest. We are a species that does not know what it's doing. We like to think what we are doing is correct, that our ideologies are benevolent and great in nature, but take into consideration exactly what that looks like. We think that our opinions are right. We think our views are right. No one thinks they're the bad guy. Do you really think back in 1913, 1914, when Sigmund Freud, Vladimir Trotsky, Joseph Stalin, Adolf Hitler, and many others were living in the same area in Vienna? Do you really think that any one of them had any idea exactly how the next 30 years would shape out? Absolutely not. Why? Because the way the world works is so mysterious, but is also so direct and straightforward that so many people completely miss the point entirely. The point of getting to where you need to be is to be yourself, is to focus on your journey, not step on others on the way up, and you must do what you can to reach from outside of the confines of this indoctrination and through this proverbial herding program known as the regular education system. And we must move forward. We must think independently. We must research independently. We must look at the facts and at the books and at the volumes of text that people before us have left to ensure that we do not recreate the same mistakes of the future. We are horrible at this, ladies and gentlemen. We do not do a good job as a species at creating a better and brighter tomorrow. Instead, smaller packets of people, little groups here and there, are doing their best in order to ensure that communities, people, families, and heck, even entertainers, laureates, and idealists are safe from the scourge of society. But how we do that is entirely individual to our own particular entity in and of itself. We need to focus on exactly who and what we are trying to impress. Why do we work so hard to try to capitulate to people in whom, quite frankly, do not care whether we live or die? Why is it that we spend years of our lives working towards a potential solution to which no one asked a question for? It is due to the very nature of the human spirit. Our brains are very powerful entities, and ultimately, at the end of the day, we outnumber all governments and all facets of this planet. If each and every single person were to drop their freaking shoes and their work hats for 5 days, everyone, every person, the entire government system would shut down. And this is what they do not want you to realize. This is what they want you to live in fear of. World War III will not come with the barrage of bullets first. No, it will come with silence, with words written in clandestine nature, and it will come in the flash of a light. So, dear listener, when you take into account exactly what is going to lead to the next global conflict being official, one must understand that you must do everything that you can in order to find a way through it. We owe it to ourselves to do better. And until next time, dear listeners, thank you for tuning in today. Take care of yourselves and each other. Cheating Death Podcast is brought to you by Nachdem Lieben CRDVC, Cleric of Chaos, and where you can find all podcasts on all platforms. If you'd like to support the program, you may do so by purchasing a cameo, buying some merchandise, or buying us a coffee at the links in the episode's description below. Of course, We would also encourage you to subscribe to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/@clericchaos, where we are trying to reach 100 subscribers before the end of the summer proper. And of course, dear listener, follow all of our social medias listed at the links in the episodes and the podcast description. Please be sure to follow Instagram.com/backroomcomedyclub for shows 5 nights a week at 8 p.m. and 10 p.m., 814 Bloor Street West in Toronto, Ontario, Canada. Be sure to go on down to Dundas Shawarma and 768 Dundas Street West in Toronto, Ontario for some of the best pizza and shawarma this side of town. And of course, we would be remiss if we did not mention the W Burger Bar, located at 10 College Street in Toronto, Ontario, Canada, and open 7 days a week from 11 a.m. to 2 a.m. daily, with happy hour specials between 3 p.m. and 6 p.m. and a lunch special, $9.99 for burger and fries from 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. as well. Dear listener, $2.25 Pabst Blue Ribbons, $9.99 fishbowl cocktails, and $6.99 frozen cocktails. You are bound to have an absolutely fantastic time. Follow our very funny friend, comedian Alex Burke, at Instagram.com/AlexBurkeComedy, the comedian Damon Charles at Instagram.com/Damon.Charles, our lovely friend, and New Yorker extraordinaire, comedian Will Daniels at Instagram.com/Lift4Kids. That's Lift4KIDZ. Comedian Darren Burke at Instagram.com/DarrenBurkeComedy. Comedian Nicole Rannen at Instagram.com/hot.mama.scholar. Our lifting liaison, powerlifting extraordinaire Doug Mallow at Instagram.com/just_the_epic. And please continue to follow each and every single one of our friends, producers, and directors in the pin profile post below. Dear listeners, we ask if you or anyone you know are experiencing a calamity of domestic violence, gambling abuse, substance withdrawal, that there is help. Please contact one of the telephone numbers listed in the links and in the episodes and in the podcast description as well. If you or anyone you know are looking to adopt a playful puppy or a cute kitten, please visit your local animal adoption rescue center, for they are in dire need of your support. As well, please be sure to reach out to yummypets.com/voice. Create a free account. Click the button every day for shelter animals to have an opportunity for themselves to be able to receive 330 pounds of kibble. And we would like to report that this particular campaign has been a success, so thank you very much for doing your part and making sure that shelter animals have some food and some lovely treats for themselves. Dear listeners, we understand that the calamity of life only continues to climb. We know for a fact that as you progress throughout this road of life, that things only become more and more arduous as time goes on. Your body breaks down, your mind loses the capacity to create cognitive function, and we all inevitably and eventually march towards death. None of us get out of this alive, but as long as you are doing every single possible thing you can to cheat death within your timeline, you are doing everything within your power to create the world that you see for yourself. There is no excuse. There are no answers that anyone else can provide except for you. Look inside of your brain. See exactly what you can do to find the reality and the love that you seek. And remember, we're pulling for you. We're all in this together.